This is the Riverside District Olmsted Community Alliance meeting by our operations format. This is District 1, and District 1 covers both Riverside and Front Park, Days Park, Prospect Park, and some of the circles. So we've, from a community engagement standpoint, we've split District 1 into A and B, just because those communities sort of connect, but there's plenty of individual interest in each one. So for today's conversation, I think we'll be able to keep it moving, and really it's supposed to be a little bit of update and a lot of just dialogue and coordination. So I'm gonna revisit the purpose of the alliance briefly, but then the majority of the meeting is really just going to be the update side, which is the Conservancy reporting out, and then the identification of park issues and concerns. Got a few of the things going to move forward from last meeting to talk about, and then obviously anything new on people's minds. The floor will be open. In terms of communicating on Zoom, there is the chat function. Hopefully you guys are familiar with. So you can write in comments, and then we'll pause, and Z will sort of sort through those and bring those up. There also will be the hand raise option and the reactions, and then again, when we pause and discuss, Z will just manage calling on you. So what I am leaving off, what I did last meeting, was do the background on the Conservancy and background on the 5-year plan, which is really the broader context of a lot of the projects that we move forward. I do have slides on those and can revisit if people feel it's necessary, but we did go over that pretty in depth last meeting, and hopefully we can just move along to the interesting stuff. So again, with that, this Olmsted Community Alliance, again, we're talking about this system-wide, but district by district. The objectives is really for you all to be representatives of your community, to engage others in your community, to bring them to the table. It's really an opportunity for dialogue. That's really all it's supposed to be, is just opening lines of communication. The other objectives relate to supporting the implementation of our 5-year plan projects, continuing park user outreach and increasing awareness of all the things that we're doing at the Conservancy, and then hopefully inspiring greater stewardship and volunteerism. But again, the real purpose is just to strengthen the Conservancy's relationship with our communities, our community members, our stakeholders, in partnership with the City of Buffalo and the council members. So with that in mind, just to sort of reinforce, we're having these conversations 5 different times all around the city. So starting up with District 1A, but next week we'll be over on the west side to Delaware, MLK, and South District, sort of having similar conversations focused on the sort of parks in your neighborhood. So again, we're here. The conversation is intended to be about half report. We can discuss things related to maintenance, things related to capital projects, park events, but then it's really important, and the real goal is to get the feedback on your concerns and issues, feedback on the projects, and then engagement and opportunities moving forward. The long-term plan is that once we get these district committees humming, we're going to have an opportunity to sort of bring the whole system together with representatives of each group into sort of something that yet to be named other aspect of our community alliance. But again, all stuff for down the road, as things really get moving. Your role again is just to be an ambassador, try and bring more people to the table, And as much as you have the wherewithal, get involved in our work. So the key folks all on this call, we've got myself, but also Zach Garland, who's our community outreach manager. He's really the point person for volunteer events, volunteer projects, but also sort of my right-hand man in coordinating these meetings. And then alongside him, our marketing specialist, Z has a new title now. Z, why don't you unmute yourself and remind me what that is? An exciting new title.
Community and no wait.
You don't really
I'm
know
also
it.
unfamiliar myself. I think it's Advocacy and Communications.
Okay, yeah. So she's stepping in with a larger role in helping out in the advocacy work of the Conservancy, which is a great help to our organization. Additionally, key folks, Stephanie Crockett, our executive director, Greg Robinson here on the Zoom, our director of park administration. You will be meeting at some point in the near future, a director of development and communications, does our fundraising, Katie Stevenson, and then Bob Stotz runs our operations crew, people you hopefully know and hopefully are on a first name basis with. Humbert Baez, the district supervisor, and then other full-time staff, the four person for the West District, Anthony White and Angel, kind of our senior mower and Bert's right-hand man. So with that sort of context, and again, I'm going to sort of decrease my introduction to this group, but I feel like every time I do it, I want to sort of reinforce what we're here for. We're going to dive right into project updates. So related to things that we have had rolling, last time I reported that we were allocated money through Robin Schimmiger's office for baseball in Riverside Park. Greg has been doing his due diligence, getting all of the paperwork in, but this spring, be planning the schedule for breaking ground with a scope of work sorry, I got to move all your faces so I can read everything I say here. I got written down. So scope of work really focused on Diamond 1, the sort of prime diamond out there. Gonna be able to upgrade the bleachers, and that'll allow us to take any of the existing bleachers that are in good shape and reallocate them around the park. So it's basically eliminate the two worst bleachers in the system. Going to rebuild the pitcher's mound, which is a huge maintenance issue, and that's going to be a major thing, but addressing the whole infield. And then also the big ticket item is related to the backstop, related to the fencing, repairing the fencing, but also expanding the catchment area. We still do have issues along Crowley Avenue of baseballs getting rocketed up the street. So hopefully this sort of expansion will resolve some of those safety issues. And then turf restoration to round it all out. So a great investment. Again, we're sort of at the early phases of scoping this out and sort of planning for spring. So certainly as we get into the discussion area, any thoughts always welcome in terms of not only this work, but further priorities as we raise more money for baseball. With the football field, we had some struggles. The city handled some struggles related to a capital project and the contractor who was working on the football fields. We did get a lot of great infrastructure work done with new infrastructure to connect our water cannon out there with water access right in sort of the foreground of this picture. Also got a brand new digital interface for the scoreboard for the football. Also got some great investment with additional pedestrian connections up to Tonawanda Street, and the beginnings of some traffic control measures along the parallel parking along Hodling Drive. I'd mentioned challenges with the contractor. The turf establishment was not on schedule. It affected some of the scheduling of the football league. And this spring, Elber's Nursery is going to be coming back in and doing another overseeding of some recreation grade seed for the field to get it ready for this coming year's recreation season out on the football field. Sort of building off of the parking controls along Hodling. Going to be handling some additional resources brought to bear by the city for some traffic control around a lot of the parks, and Riverside is in the mix for additional traffic control measures. This is some examples from Martin Luther King Park that have happened, managing some of those traffic issues at corner entrances. But wanted to pause for a moment as we're going through this and just open up a discussion related to traffic issues you've identified throughout Riverside Park. Again, we're very early in the process, but we want to sort of start by sort of getting a little bit of input into areas of concern you've seen in your daily route. Again, we'll be certainly bringing this back to the group again in April, because we don't exactly have the exact timeline and when these things will be rolling. So at this point, I guess I'd just pause and open up opportunities. I think we're maybe a small enough group that might be able to handle just speaking up, but you're all always welcome to throw your hand up, and Zeke can call on you too. But Mary Ann, looked like you took your Zoom off, or Joe. So
yes, we did.
All right.
Couple of things I've noticed. For the last couple of months, have you guys noticed that it looks like there's ATV riders in the park? Because I've seen tracks like scooting around in the snow and also kind of in the wet grass down around Esser.
I am aware of a legacy of that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough one, but we do have the issue with those folks in the neighborhood in general. So I guess it's just a policing issue.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I did notice actually today some tracks over by the pool, but they might have been utility workers going up to that Coast Guard light. I'm not sure. Maybe you can ask your guys if they know about it.
That was a new one.
It was in the snow today. Like somebody zipped up there and scooted around.
Guys, if I could hop in on that one in particular, Joe, that was the evidence left behind from our tree care company that's removing the ash trees. There was a dead ash tree in front. Brian's going to touch on that in a minute, so I think we're stealing his thunder a little bit, but that was one of the rare instances of authorized vehicles in the park. That was the tree care company using their equipment.
Well, it looked like pretty fresh stuff in the snow, so it looked like something that was purposeful.
And then the ongoing issue of in front of the hockey rink.
Yeah,
That's a parking mess.
The parking issues.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. They're not trying to get into the center of the park, but yeah, they'll basically park anywhere they can off pavement to get to the ice area.
They start going on the half circle, and when there's not enough room on the half circle, then they just park wherever they feel. Because the parking lot is filled up, and I don't think that anybody recognizes they can park on the street. So they absolutely are not parking. Some people park on the street, but in general, they'll park all over the front grass there, like it's another parking lot.
Yeah, it's just an uncontrolled thing. I mean, it's tough when they got to carry all that gear and everything, but they need to manage it.
Well, maybe they need a drop off there.
Yeah. Have you had any problems with people riding up and down the Esser Street walkway? I haven't seen that in a long time, because I know you got the gate over by the hockey rink now. Because people used to cut through there.
Yep, I think that's a great point.
Maybe some traffic controls down there that you're gonna put in. I don't know where you're planning to put them in, the bollards. But maybe some of that'll put a kibosh to that. And
It might be a good idea to try to, if the hockey rink is going to stay there, it might be a good idea to try and rethink how the approach is and where people should park. I mean, a drop off for the front of there may not be a bad idea. Drop your stuff, drop your gear, and then go and park someplace. I don't think we're going to advocate for more parking. So just know that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
is
That's a
the
good
front,
point.
part- is the front part of the rink, the old casino, is that all Saba in there? Or can you still walk through there?
Oh, no. You can't go there.
Saba does have a presence in there. That came up as a comment last go around about learning a little bit more about the ins and outs of what space is being utilized, how much space they really need, so we're still actually doing some due diligence on tracking down the details there. But they do have a presence for sure.
Yeah, because I think everybody, when they come, especially for hockey, they all try to get to the side door.
Yes.
And that just causes trouble. And nobody ever seems to use the front door.
There's no front door to use. It's locked.
No, there's a front door there.
No, it's locked. There's no
I
access there. There's no
I
access.
understand there's no
Right.
access. Why can't there be
Right,
access?
exactly.
So maybe if they can come up with a better traffic pattern, it's kind of tough because you're going kind of backwards from the parking when you pull up there,
Right.
but I don't know.
Sure.
It's just, that whole, when they have their tournaments there, it's just kind of, frantic over there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Maybe it's, we're expanding not only just dropping in traffic controls, but maybe some traffic flow analysis, in terms of.
And maybe the leagues need to have somebody directing traffic out there when they have their tournaments. I mean, something beyond just the red and green traffic light. Maybe somebody needs to be out there directing people what to do. Rather than all this haphazardness. Because they're just gonna damage the lawn, which is what they've always done.
Right. That's all very good info. Any other thoughts specifically on areas of the park where managing traffic? I do think those ATVs, we're certainly not gonna space physical barriers narrow
No.
enough that
No.
be able to keep everything with a little engine on it out, but we do need to again coordinate with our enforcement on those
Yeah,
things.
we watched a guy go in front of our house this past week when it started snowing, pulling somebody on a sled.
On the street.
No, on the side, was on
On
the
the street.
sidewalk.
It was
I
on
think
Niagara
it was on
Street.
Street, it was on the sidewalk.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
going around the block. I said,
Yep.
well, okay.
On the street.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see him doing it in the park.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's
That's
all.
good.
That's good enough. And I think, again, timeline on this isn't going to be so fast into the year that we won't be bringing this back around in April. All right. So back to it. So just an update since our last meeting. There was some damage. This is an older picture, but if you're following my arrow, this slide and this wall were burned to a crisp spring of 2021, and we're happy to report that by late fall, we were able to get both of those features back up through resources brought to bear by our wonderful councilman Joe Golombek. So that was a great thing, but sadly, the what is it called, supply chain issues. This was, I believe, Greg, correct if I'm wrong, about a 6-month process from having the cash in hand, placing the order, to these things arriving. And I think that has even, we were informed, has been delayed to about a 9-month delay. So even if like a playground project, even if we finalize design and are ready to go, it's going to be a 9-month break between deciding on things and getting them in the ground, which I think is just going to be a reality.
You're on mute.
Yeah.
No, I took it off. Is there any camera or surveillance in that playground? Blink cameras are a beautiful thing. And you have electric power there. There's no reason in the world why you can't get a little bit of Wi-Fi up there and put some blink cameras in or some surveillance cameras. Because that kind of activity should definitely be prosecuted. I mean, obviously. And you've got you've got the facilities there.
That is a good point, and that ties to another issue that I was imagining might come up in community comments. That I guess around New Year's we had a major graffiti issue on the shelter building.
Same thing.
So yeah, this sort of seems like maybe a hot spot for issues in this park. That's a great comment. I know Greg, again, feel free to chime in, but I know we've been working with the BPD on they've got a pretty fancy setup in terms of those blue light cameras, in terms of where they put those around, and they've got access to them, and we've been working with them in MLK Park to add some in. So,
but you can make those smaller blink cameras community resources, and the police can use those film clips for prosecution if you allow it. So as an institution, as Olmsted, I would think that there would be something similar, because we can do it as individuals. So if you've got it listed, I would think it'd be pretty powerful.
Yeah, that is something that I know we were dealing with it down in Kaz Park with some issues there where we took that approach of other cameras. Again, I think circling back, I think there were some pros and cons to sort of how hands-on we had to be in that surveillance and coordinating. But yeah, I will that'll get sorted out, and I think we'll circle back on a next steps related to that next meeting. Great point. Okay, any other conversation related to playgrounds? I do have a comment. I won't dive into it now, related to some of the comments last meeting about universal access. But I'll save that for the next phase. So that's really still more in community convo. In terms of system-wide stuff, we are finalizing an RFP. This is unfortunately a photo of a Delaware Park sign, but pretty much throughout the whole system, our original signage has faded substantially to the point where it's almost not functioning as wayfinding. But we have been working with a consultant. We've got some minor tweaks to the design standard. And this spring, we will be seeing a fully funded refurbishment of all existing signs within the Olmsted Park system. So all the signs within.
Included?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are included.
I'm just laughing. I'm looking at your display and we're not in there.
Oh, yeah.
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 You know better than to come to a meeting without representing us.
Yeah, I should have picked up on with Lauren that we've got way too much South Buffalo going on here. We gotta mix these up. 3 options. Yeah, we gotta be changing some of those. My apologies. But let's see. Do I have any? No. I'm just digging a bigger hole for myself up here in Riverside. But yeah, so
you're going further down the hole.
Yeah, every existing sign is going to get refurbished as step 1, and we've also got a fair amount of money to do additional signage, moving into the sort of wayfinding within the park, some orientation mapping stuff, and then interpretive signs. So we'll be circling back on the details of those, but those will be in the next phase of implementation. We're starting with all the signs we got, and then we'll take that next step. So within the next step within Riverside would be plans to replace the interpretive sign that used to be out on the old overlook. I think we're going to take a fresh look at redesigning that and put a new standard out there. So that'll be phase 2 or 3, but that's an exciting thing that's already funded.
Ryan, I have a quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt again,
Yep.
but the St. Francis Cemetery, Is there
Yes.
any feeling as to, if there was a choice to do a sign that would be similar, not necessarily an Olmsted sign, but something similar so that it would look cohesive, or the fact, would that be open for discussion?
So be assigned for the cemetery?
Yeah.
I think so. In terms of the way the city usage criteria is getting worked out in the manual, if it's not a park, that would be kind of a misleading sign. So I mean, the city does have a sign shop. I could do, potentially could work with them to do something attractive and helpful. But in terms of it looking like one of the park signs, I think that would probably go against the guidelines for usage.
That's why I'm asking. I have no idea, so
There's
that's
there's
good to
a-
know.
There's a sign at the gate, isn't there?
Well, but if you wanted to
Small.
enhance it, and if they're
Yeah.
doing all the signs, I didn't know if it'd be appropriate or not.
Talking to church.
Yeah, well, you have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Yep. Other system-wide issues. Greg had mentioned our funding for through the DEC for ash tree removal, and Joe was on the ball and noticing some of the remnants of one of those three removals, but all three of those removals of sort of major standing dead ash out in the park have been taken care of in Riverside Park. So it's some exciting news that Riverside's been taken care of in terms of getting the large standing dead ash out. And then I did additional things again, sort of down the pipe. The sort of funding I think is coming in a little slower than we had hoped on this issue, but we do have a request in through the city for some system-wide lighting assessments. So basically, working through this effort, and again, we'll be bringing this back to the group, identifying where existing lighting is either not functioning or is completely missing throughout the whole system, getting an inventory of all of that. I do have some further information related to, well, not information, but documented concern related to the lighthouse area and some progress, I guess, on that to report as we dive in. But the idea is that we'll take out a lot of the sort of inconsistent lighting that's either missing or broken, and we'll be replacing it in all cases with the Olmsted standards. So the ornamental pedestrian pole or the ornamental overhead pole, depending on the sighting of either one of those. So an exciting step in the right direction, but again, sort of coming down the line, really recognizing that lighting is a key feature of safety throughout the park system. So that continues to be on our radar.
Brian, those overhead lights don't go down Niagara Street, right? They would just be on Hodling, and they don't go down Vulcan, right?
So they wouldn't go like they certainly would not go down Niagara once you pass Crowley or pass Vulcan. We unfortunately haven't had the luxury of thinking about so many different places where these light poles could go, but when you're sort of alongside one of the Olmsted parks, it potentially could be appropriate to have the ornamental pole, where it's like the actual base is sitting within the park itself. But once you sort of move off. Yeah.
The reason that I'm asking is there has been significant damage to the poles along Niagara Street with the last windstorm we had. We had one of them blow down and diagonally from our house. And if you look at the base of those poles, they're really becoming compromised. So I suspect if somebody from the city wanted to actually look at them, you may find that there may be a number of them that need to be replaced, which may be an opportunity to, not for Olmsted to do it, but to coordinate with the city and maybe have the look be, somewhat similar.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that, again, in terms of crisscrossing efforts, I know that there is a there is a, that Niagara Street improvement project is chugging its way up Niagara Street slowly. And while I don't, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think major changes are suggested north of Ontario.
Nothing.
Maybe picking up on that standard might be a nice improvement to go to the LED lighting as a way to sort of visually finish that project up to Riverside. That's a
I doubt that's gonna happen, but if they're gonna have to replace lights,
yeah.
now, if you're replacing lights, then why not replace it with a standard that looks like the rest of the Olmsted genre, at least from Crowley over, and then the same thing with Vulcan, because those
Exactly.
lights come down. Now, those lights may not be strong enough, quite honestly, to withstand the wind that we get. But
Yeah, we
that's
just,
my whole nother-
just a couple of things to be aware of, even with the lights that we have out here now, which aren't too dissimilar in the basic design from these. You know, how the actual luminaire hangs.
Yep.
The ones we have on the street actually hang. And I know that when they first put them in, they were blowing off quite frequently because of the wind. I know
Really?
they did something to strengthen them,
Mhm.
so that's one issue. The other issue with the one that just blew over, that was in that 75-mile-an-hour day. We get a lot of corrosion over here, and you can attest to this with the overlook over there.
Yep.
Between the road salt that the street uses, because they're right, these lights are right at the curb.
Right.
And it gets piled up over there, and whatever they're throwing on the expressway down there. I've got corrosion on our house, for Christ's sake, because of all the stuff flying through the air. So just something to be aware of with these, because the one that blew over across the street, the whole bottom was rotten out. And that's why it went over. It was just gone. And just walking down the street a little bit, I can see others are getting to be the same way. So just
Yeah.
kind of some minor points to be aware of.
Yeah. Not to delve too deeply into this, but would you say it's windier up here than it is down at the Peace Bridge area and like Porter Avenue? Because we could check in. I know they've got these standards up Porter Avenue, and that might be a comparable situation, or maybe not. I don't know.
There ain't nothing stopping the wind over here. So whatever's coming is just rolling across the river.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you. I know that years ago, I actually have an anemometer.
Yeah.
An anemometer. I still have it somewhere. We walked out in the corner of the house here on a windy day, and it was like, holy Christ. And that wasn't even a 70-mile-an-hour day. I mean, it really blows over here.
So
Okay.
Brian, while you're looking for things to do in Riverside Park, put up a weather station so we can actually measure the wind.
Weather station. That's good.
Yeah.
Why
Put-
not?
Put it on Channel 4 on a Mesonet site or something. They'd probably get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
Brian, we have a question from Shay.
Yeah.
This was a little way back, and just, so the folks know, my name is Shay Akers, and I'm the director at the Boys and Girls Club that's on Riverdale. And so we bring our kiddos to the park when it's nice and warm out. So that's why I'm in this meeting, to just kind of see the directions going and to get my kids out there more often.
Ooh.
But my question was back actually about the ash trees and things like that. And I apologize if you're going to address this later on, but is there a retreeing plan to replace those trees that have kind of fallen and things like that?
So that's a great question, and something we are continuously attempting to plant trees. We do include them in capital projects. So for example, you can see actually here one in the foreground of the picture when we did the football field project. 10 trees, I want to say, were planted as a part of that project. So we do try and include them in other projects as sort of part of the work. We have there was a time back after the October storm where we were getting lots of resources brought to the table for reforestation. Those resources aren't quite as available as they have been in recent years. But we do have a commemorative program, and we are constantly looking for new resources, through working with Retree Western New York and the Buffalo Green Fund. So we want to get out there and plant more trees. We do need to think about our ability to make sure we're keeping them alive through those first 3 critical years of establishment. But I wish I could report that we have more resources for reforestation, but we certainly have all the original plans, and we know where we would put trees if we can line up the resources. It's just going a little slower than we had hoped on the reforestation
One of
process.
the things
but
we had
pretty
asked,
important.
one of the grants that we had asked for recently was the Tonawanda money. And part of the money that the Alliance had put in there was for retreeing. We did not get funded, nor did Old Town. So that was an unfortunate oversight on the part of the people who were funding. So.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I absolutely know the pain of working with grants and things like that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, great comment though. Thanks.
Thank you, Shay. Brian, we have a raised hand from Anne.
All right.
So Shay actually asked my first question about retreeing from removing the ash trees, since we're in the middle of our habitat projects. Is there any opportunity or chance, and I know Shay, you and I actually need to spend time reconnecting so we can talk about some common things that we have in some common interests that we have, particularly now in your new position. But in the meantime, is there any opportunity to have some portion of the park to expand maybe on the tree farm project that the Boys and Girls Club is doing over on their space, so that we can actually, like start to grow seedlings that will become trees that we can put back into the park and help Olmsted on a greater level?
Just to clarify, the question is about using the park as the site of the tree farm. So
yeah, could we take a little corner someplace and start a tree farm? Because we have our native tree beds in our Farmer Street garden, community garden, which we just retreed with 200, but we're 200 seedlings, and we're going to have to move a bunch of those so they can continue to grow in the spring and in, over the next 2 years, and allow them to get bigger, so then we can actually, replant them in other places. But the question is, is there an area that we could designate as tree farm area right in the park?
I think the challenge with that, and I think would be, using what is given the gravitas of a historic park, where we're focused on restoration and sort of turning a part of it into more of like a production style rows, tightly spaced trees where you're coming in and sort of redigging, versus strictly focused on restoration. We do, and maybe this is somewhere in between those two ideas, is we are very careful about, when we plant trees out in open lawn areas, that we're getting sizable trees that are going to withstand the sort of day-to-day rigmarole of public parks. But in terms of establishing our naturalized areas, which is areas where we reduce mowing, and we're kind of going back to more of a either regenerative meadow area, or even with the goal of restoring woodland, we do directly plant in tiny saplings, whips, directly into the park, but they're planted to live their entire life in that location. So I mean, again, I marking down the idea. I think we can talk about it in internally, but to sort of go to the farm model on historic parkland, I think does present some challenges, in our overall sort of every inch of this system, has a goal for restoration. But an interesting thought. And I guess, in terms of partnership between the tree farm and, planting trees within the park, I think, love to explore all the different manifestations that could take. I know we sort of had maybe had a little stutter step in previous years on making that process work, but I think we're definitely interested in attempting to keep that going.
Okay, well,
So-
if you need some 3 to 5 years saplings, I guess, once they get to a certain point, to put into some of the natural habitat areas, let us know. We have a garden full of them.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, we can.
And they're all
yeah,
and they're all native species.
That's
So-
great. Yeah, I think, and I will have Zach follow up with you on getting that inventory, and certainly within the River Rock Gardens area, there's a lot of trees that need to get put back into those existing beds, and sort of there's plans to sort of expand naturalized areas over there. So I think that could work out well.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Any other hands up, Z, before we move into, we're
Nope,
making a
we're-
good transition directly into, now it's kind of community conversation zone. So again, just in terms of sort of follow up from our October meeting, there were a number of things that were brought up. Homelessness in the park, coming out of fall, we were finding some issues of little encampments. There was some discussion about whether we needed to sort of throw over the winter, have some proactive conversations. We have made preliminary connections, with, working with Department of Citizen Services, Friends of the Night People, Family Promise, and the City Mission. So, but no real, significant planning over the course of this winter since our last meeting. But I guess sort of leave it open to conversation about whether we pursue some proactive members and getting a little more of a plan in place for sort of helping these people get out of the park into the right place if they don't have a home to go back to. So are we feeling as a group that this is still a major concern for us, that we should be strategizing, or kind of wait and see how things evolve over the course of 2022?
I can say from my perspective, it is an issue. When we do bring the kids, we send our YDPs, our youth development professionals, we send them ahead to clean the park of anything from needles to stuff that we just don't want kids to be near. And I've always wondered why we don't have like roaming social workers in the area, and what that would look like in X, especially with the intersection of Tonawanda and Vulcan, to have more social workers and on the ground direct care people there.
Evelyn, can you speak to the meeting that we just had?
Or the meeting that we are planning on having?
Yeah.
That too. Marianne brought the concern to the light of day about how many homeless people we have, not just the ones that you see in Riverside Park, but the ones that are at the bus shelter down at Niagara in Ontario. And I want you to know, I did go down there that very cold night, and there were people in there, and I did call Buffalo Police non-emergency number and asked them to check on them. And the girl said, what? And I said, a welfare check. And I said, you put it in as a welfare check. She said, I know what I'm doing. And I thought, well, we're getting a lot of help here. So we wanted to get some people to work together on this project. We've got Hearts for the Homeless, some folks there, Friends of Night People, and we're trying to get some help through the community police officers, trying to get a group of us together to see what we can do to be proactive and help some of these people. So.
Okay, well, yeah, well, I mean, anything that we can help with, certainly in terms of coordinating, we've got our staff on the ground in the park. and coordinating on who they should be calling and all that. That's certainly something we want to stay in the loop on. So we'll follow up with you on that. All right. So again, just other issues that came up, lighting in the park. So this was a photo I took last night out in the park. I have notified the city with regard to these lights being out. I don't know whether there's some special issue, because this is a somewhat non-standard light, might be a non-standard luminaire inside of there. But two of about 10 actually being functional in this area where we do continue to have challenging activities in the evening, is something that we're staying on top of and coordinating on. If as we sort of again identify non-functional lights or replacing lights, certainly this is somewhere we can prioritize if it means that we're going to have more continuous safety lighting in place. The other area that was brought to our attention was River Rock Gardens. So we've sort of got that on our list because there is no existing lighting in River Rock Gardens, sort of keeping tabs on that for a future capital project to add more light, which is something that we're addressing in other parks, and sort of adding lighting into areas that require it. So again, sort of took that note. We've got that noted as kind of in the 5-year plan effort. Crowley concession stand, there was a discussion of continuing the effort of trying to get that activated more, get that utilized more. We have not made contact with the River Rock baseball group that, as we understand it, is behind the operation of that. Apparently, they haven't been in operation for the last couple of years due to COVID, but we have been in contact with the County of Erie Baseball League or Baseball Association that is in coordination with the Black Rock Baseball League, so or River Rock Baseball League, and continuing to sort of think about that building and how it could be serving the public a little better. And then the last sort of group of things that were brought up at the last meeting was related to recreational enhancements. Universal access playground was brought to the table. New recreation ideas have sort of been discussed really all around the city with regard to parkour and pickleball, transitioning from tennis courts to sort of more versatile tennis court / pickleball court. And then the conversation of wading pools versus splash pad, sort of covering all three of these. City of Buffalo is in sort of final development on their parks master plan. It does sort of start a conversation about how recreation has evolved since the baseball diamonds and the soccer fields and everything were all put in terms of what people like to do. The wading pool splash pad conversation is also sort of ingrained in that report. And in terms of universal access playgrounds, brought up at the last meeting by Jackie Eckert was a grant opportunity that the Conservancy has been following up on, related to resources available for universal access playgrounds. But it's definitely become a hotter topic of making playgrounds useful to all ages and all levels of ability. So again, I think with regard to all three of these and this ongoing effort and report, I think the way we're sort of thinking about moving forward in this evaluation with the city is sort of looking at these things citywide in terms of the recreation features, not only within Riverside Park, but sort of within the sort of quarter mile, half mile, 3/4 mile out, and sort of how are we serving this community, and where is the right place to start evolving our recreation from one type to another, or using sort of underutilized space for other sporting activities. So we are sort of thinking about this sort of more broadly, and then also sort of thinking about it citywide, but really following the leadership and the conversations that are sort of forthcoming and sort of evolving as a part of this park system master plan. So again, that's not really a very clear answer on these sorts of things, other than that, I think we are, and the city is sort of setting the stage for some sort of citywide consideration of these new things that have been brought to the table. So I'd say look forward to more conversation on those items. So certainly happy to elaborate on any of these sort of community concerns, sort of wrap up, or not wrap up, but sort of bringing them back through, and then also happy to sort of add to this growing list with anything that's sort of come to mind over the course of the last 3 months or so since we met.
Brian, I have one thing.
Yes.
Splash pad. I don't think it's going to be acceptable for us to go through another year with no access to any kind of water recreation within our community at all. We're the last community that doesn't have a splash pad. What is the city's plan? And to say that it's going into the bigger plan, in my mind, is a cop-out, and it's totally unacceptable. I mean, they just finished Shoshone. They did MLK. South Buffalo, I think, has one. There's one on Porter. We have nothing. And the pools are going to be closed again this year. So what are we doing for our kids?
That's a great point.
So
Yeah,
how
I
do
mean-
I don't expect Olmsted to carry that banner, but how do we carry the banner to the city? Because we're not even included in the city's master plan, the parks master plan. There's no engagement as far as I know.
Oh, engagement wise. Well, I mean, certainly a starting point will be,
Please don't
continuing
tell me
with
to
our,
call Andy Rabb.
what's that?
Please don't tell me to call Andy Rabb.
No, I wasn't going to tell you to call Andy Brad, but I can certainly get more answers. He really put it very well in terms of not only, this isn't the wading pools aren't useful, the splash pads are useful, but really this is the last corner of the city that is kind of getting left out of the conversation, which kind of hasn't been the way that I've, put it previously in terms of this sort of discussion of wading pools and splash pads. So this is something else certainly, in our follow-up with the city, sort of bring to their attention. And I think we can, discuss further about, mechanisms to make it happen.
Shay, you have kids who are in the park all the time, and certainly the daycare has kids that are in the park all the time. I would think that would be a useful thing for you guys to be able to utilize. Is that true or not true?
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute for a second. That's absolutely true. And a splash pad would, at least on my side for the logistics of it, because we're a licensed program, would be much easier to do. Otherwise, we would have to pay for our own lifeguards to bring them to a pool, regardless if there's a lifeguard on duty. So it's much better for me to have a splash pad. So, but I am actually not from this area. I'm from I live in the Porter West Side, Lower West Side area, and we love our splash pad. It is used frequently, constantly by all ages. I see my whole community there all the time. People from all over. So it would absolutely be a great idea to put one in my opinion.
And we have a question from Evelyn on the lighthouse.
Yes.
They are asking if the light in the lighthouse itself would be lit. Is that right, Evelyn?
Yes, that was actually lit for many years. It hasn't been lit in quite a few years now. Is
Oh.
there, is there a possibility of getting that lighthouse lit again?
Yeah, that certainly wasn't a part of my sort of initial outreach, that the light was missing in there. I guess the other thing that I would, I guess, route I would take in terms of outreach and follow-up is whether that lighthouse is considered public art. And I guess maybe I can not only follow up with Jermaine in Public Works, but also go to Emerson Barr at the Arts Commission on whether that's that's sort of a maintenance of public art issue, as well as you know, just basically turning lights back on that have been turned off or non-functional. So
Well, I'm sure you'd want to refit them with the more economical lighting now than.
Yep.
It hasn't been lit in at least 7 years, from what I understand.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I will put in my to-do list to bring that, at least find out from the Arts Commission whether that's something they could weigh in on. That's great.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, taking the whole lighting thing a step further. And initially I was thinking about the garden area, but I guess it could go towards, this lighthouse as well. If we do anything, if we're going to invest anything in these things, could we like take it another step or two and do something beyond just putting up the Olmsted standard pedestrian lights? I mean, could we do, even the lighthouse? I mean, if we're going to do something with LEDs, can we do something that's more fun? And if we do the River Rock Gardens, can we light more than just the pathways? Could we do some sort of, accent lighting, under the bridge and stuff like that?
Or artistic lighting.
Or artistic lighting. If we're gonna take the step, let's maybe it's a baby step or a small step. Maybe we can do something a little bit more.
Yep. There's some baby steps, small steps happening in Martin Luther King Park related to the MLK monument. So there is discussions happening related to sort of artwork features to sort of expand on lighting styles and approaches. So I think there is a foothold into sort of contemplating that. It's no cheap endeavor, and there's we again always have to think about ongoing maintenance tied to those sorts of things, but certainly not an unprecedented thought.
Brian, there is some really cool artwork out there that is reflective using the street lights and car approach lights. When we were in Arizona, we were kind of introduced to it so that you don't have to light the artwork itself or the sculpture itself. It kind of lights itself using the light from surrounding areas. It's really pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's sort of a luminescent paint kind of thing. So they had in some of their streets that had kind of like parkways and maybe some little roundabouts and things like that. So as you're approaching these things and your car lights hit them, all of a sudden stuff lights up. So it was kind of a double thing. Or a triple thing. It was like it was an art piece. It was a safety thing, and it was an awareness thing.
And it was
So
cool.
It was kind of neat.
That is cool.
And they weren't like super extravagant. It's kind of some.
I'll send you
basic
the
art,
pictures
but
if I can
it
find
was
them.
pretty neat.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And that's so just to be clear, that would sort of potentially be limited to areas where cars are moving through, because you need to bring in your own light to
Right.
make them
Right.
Okay. Interesting.
I think there was some reflectance from street lights too on them, but they really lit up when the cars came along.
We have a question from Anne about the crossover Niagara Street. Is it part of the park or is that managed by the city?
The Irene Gardner Bridge, that is
Thruway
That
Authority.
is not managed by the Conservancy, I guess is the way I could put it. I honestly don't know if that's DOT or city in terms of who manages that current crossing,
I think it was installed by the Thruway Authority.
or the Thruway Authority. That's
I'm not
there's
mis-
another layer there.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the Thruway Authority.
But that's a good question, and I will get an answer in terms of who maintains it. Is there an issue with the maintenance we want to get down?
There's a lot of
Mayor,
issues with it, but I don't know what Ann's issue is.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with it. I mean, it definitely needs some improvements. You know, we could do something and make it a little bit more attractive. I mean, if you're talking about lighting and things like that, I mean, it is one of the few ways that the people in this part of Riverside can actually access, you know, down by the waterfront. And, you know, it's kind of scary sometimes. So yeah, it definitely needs some attention.
Okay.
It's also too steep of a incline or decline for handicapped people when you get on the riverside of the thing coming down. I guess it's
Yeah.
too steep for people in wheelchairs and things.
Yeah, it's totally not accessible.
Yeah.
Either side. Doesn't meet any kind of standard.
I do know, and I'm imagine Mary Ann can confirm this, that certainly that this sort of the issue of this bridge and the historic relationship of a crossing from Riverside Park has caught the attention of Greg Stevens at the Niagara River Greenway Commission. So he's certainly been paying attention to this. It is certainly you know, there's a lot of ways we can go in terms of next steps and sort of reconsidering the whole thing. Obviously, with accessibility issues, whether you could retrofit this structure to make it work, or really need to start from scratch, I guess is a good starting point.
Brian, think big. The Black Rock Riverside Alliance, the Olmsted Conservancy, and the City of Buffalo Parks would take on the bridge. We could ask Greg for a couple million, no problem.
Oh yeah.
I think more than a couple.
Doesn't scare me.
It's gonna take, yeah.
You can get New York State to throw in some of their transportation money. They got money.
Yeah, there's some of that.
But you know, that's actually a really good thought, because it brings it to the county. The county's also involved then, because the county takes care of the Riverwalk along that area. So, you know, the county's pretty progressive in terms of talking about access. So maybe there is an opportunity for a discussion. Maybe it circumvents the city and just goes right to the county, and, you know, the state DOT or whoever it is that would take care of the bridge. And then you could take, you know, the extension of that over across the street might be a historic restoration.
That's a tough nut, that one.
It's a historic restoration.
That's a,
I do think you
Just
could
money.
actually get away with it being a historic restoration. I know you said it in jest, but
Oh, no.
we did a class lesson on Irene Gardner, and then took a walk from the club to go over the bridge to talk about water restoration, which was the whole point of that bridge, was to bring Riverside back to the waterfront because it was cut off.
Well, the Olmsted Park actually
Project on
went
it.
to the water. I mean, that park
Yeah.
actually went to the water. So I'm doing it in jest, but not really. So.
Yeah.
And it's just money, you know, we just
Right.
need money.
And this ties in a little bit to a suggestion I was going to make, that I came in here in the back of my head. But I took a class a while ago with the Cornell Civic Ecology Lab with about like park restoration. And one of their ideas was to tap into the environmentalism side with universities, and to get stations put into a park that citizen scientists can measure. So it would measure the wind, the water levels, things like that. And you could just snap with your phone, and that data will go to the university. And so if you think of Buff State down the road, they might have some money to put stations like that, which putting it near or on that bridge would make sense. Or at least, throughout, by the River Rock Gardens, and et cetera, to have different citizen scientists, STEM-based, interactive, community stations, I think would be really helpful. And then I'd bring my kids there all the time.
Yeah, Shay, I'd love to follow up with you on that, get more information out of that civic ecology class you took, and what the steps are in that process, because it certainly sounds like an interesting way to educate and engage. And so long as it doesn't attract vandalism or create some other issues we can't possibly imagine. It sounds like an interesting opportunity to partner.
Yeah, I believe Z has my email, but I can also forward that as well.
All right, great. All right, in our last little over 15 minutes, this is really turning the floor over to you guys. So again, any other things? I think in terms of wrap up, I just have maybe 5 minutes to wrap up, but yeah, certainly welcome further ideas to sort of keep on our tab. If anyone's got anything, again, we could get back into issues you've got with maintenance, any other concerns you got.
I did come prepared with a few different ideas, and we've talked a bunch of it already, but in another one of the ideas that has been floating around for the past couple of years was to work with community gardening, especially with food plants, and tying that in with like immigrant communities. And I know that Riverside and Black Rock has always been a home to immigrant communities, but with the influx over the past few years as well. So just working with different groups to kind of like start a garden somewhere in the park with kind of food items. I'm working right now with Massachusetts Avenue Project to bring a market to Riverdale. And so we do that every Thursday, but that is another group that we could kind of just slide right back, into work with Olmsted and kind of get that done as a partnership. Potentially.
And I'll let you speak to this, but we currently have 4 community gardens that we're supporting right now, and are happy to take volunteers at any of those 4. I don't know that anybody's prepared to do yet another garden because we have difficulty getting the volunteers that we need in the ones that we currently have. And we originally tried to work with MAP, and they would not put the food delivery in our area originally. So I'm hoping you're having better luck with the access to that than we are, because we bombed out on that one pretty badly. So, but we have community gardens. It's just getting the volunteers to work them.
Yeah, and there is, Evelyn actually oversees one of our gardens, which is right on Ontario by Tonawanda. It may be a little bit far for your kiddos to go down and participate in, but I know she does an amazing job. It's a very small garden, but it produces a lot of food. You and I, Shay, really need to just like get together, have coffee, catch up, and talk about, introduce you to what the Alliance is doing in the community in terms of our habitat project, which is would be a great project for your kids to get engaged in, creating wildlife habitats in the neighborhood. And also, we can talk about things like our community gardens and stuff like that.
This is so exciting to me. So yes, I would love to have a cup of coffee and chat more about this.
Great.
I think to Shay's suggestion earlier, Haley Whitney has suggested that the Great Lakes Environmental Science Program at Bob State might be a great partner.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So that's right. Yeah, that's just a little further south from here. But yeah.
Brian, are you guys you still have the overlook? You got that in your mind yet?
We do. That is, yeah, unfortunately don't have an update on that, but that remains in the 5-year plan. I think it's requires a little follow-up on my part. We did have some initial conversations with City Department of Public Works about maybe sort of tackling this in-house.
Mhm.
That may or may not still be on the table. But yeah, that remains on the to-do list. Thank you for
Yeah,
not
we need
letting it
to,
slip off.
need to give that one some careful thought.
Yeah.
Just redoing what's there isn't gonna be wise.
Big at the big county
You
thing.
know,
taking
gotta do
over,
something else.
Do the bridge and that.
Any other final thoughts?
I have a little spiel. If you guys are on Facebook, please join the OCA Facebook group. It will be a good way to network, like how Shay and Ann connected again. So that's, you feel free to reach out to anyone from different districts, and also you can also share your community events in that group so that you can get it out to people throughout the Olmsted Park system. And there is also a place where we will post latest updates on the park meetings and upcoming things happening in the Olmsted parks.
Yeah, so here's everything Z was talking about. She's got a Facebook group set up. We will again sort of circulate this. So I don't know, do those groups have to have like a 20-digit number for them, or can they be more
Unfortunately, I can't customize it, unfortunately. But this group is not, it's a group that has all the districts in it. So you will be able to learn about, yeah, it's just more of an informal setting where everyone can connect and get to know each other. And I assume everyone who joins this group are park lovers and people who care about Olmsted parks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all great work, but yes, certainly trying to put all this information up on the website to sort of keep it live as we do these recurring meetings every 3 months. Again, so sort of working backwards our way out of this conversation. Again, sort of any feedback, with both Z, but also Zach, comments, Shay, if anything pops into your head next week and you want to just fire it off. We're collecting comments in between meetings in addition to these quarterly conversations. So welcome any thoughts anyone has at all times about how we run the meetings, what's on the agenda, how everything flows, and as well something we're focused in on is making sure that we're reaching out to everybody we can. So just want to take a moment here in terms of wrap up and in terms of outreach. So we've been compiling a list and continue to add to it. And certainly would welcome any other thoughts, in terms of outreach we've done, connecting with a lot of these groups, but we know we're not reaching everybody. So again, any thoughts anyone has on places to connect, businesses to flyer, windows that it'll be important to get a 11 by 17 in, 2 weeks out from a meeting to get people connected. We're continuing to sort of learn through our mistakes in terms of how we do this outreach and how we connect with people. But we've compiling a list for each district. Here's our current list for the Riverside district. And again, just thinking about newsletters, thinking about direct outreach. We're I think because of the weather coming into this meeting, I don't think the flyering out in the park happened or would have been very effective. But throughout different seasons, we're going to be getting physical flyers out and around the park in advance. So if you're walking through the park, you're going to see it. But again, just any ideas you have, again, follow up with Zach and or Z on those ideas. So with that, I think
Brian,
basically covered the tail end of the meeting.
Brian, quick question on that list that you just showed of like businesses and organizations and things like that. Are those businesses and groups that you want to reach out to, or that you have reached out to and have or have not had success in communicating with?
I will let Z follow up on this, but I don't think we have any really ins in terms of connecting with any of these groups. They're just places that we've
Okay.
identified that we would love a
Okay.
better contact or just a confirmation of contact.
Z, reach out to me later on this week and I can help you with a bunch of these, okay?
Sure. I think we see businesses as, because they are a park neighbor and they are right
Yep.
adjacent to the park. So we would like
Yep.
to invite them to the meeting to see if they have any feedback or contribution towards the improvements around Riverside Park.
Yep, but we've got connections. The Alliance works with a significant number of these community groups and businesses, so
Yeah,
let-
absolutely.
reach out and I can connect you to some of them.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll definitely reach out to you.
No problem.
Great. No need to make this last any longer than it needs to, but we are sort of wrapping up planning next steps. In terms of next meetings, we are trying to standardize these meetings. It's going to take a little while to get us on track, but the idea is that we're going to be doing these meetings on Wednesdays throughout the first month in each quarter, and we're going to start with District 1 and work our way through. So the first Wednesday in April is the thought for our next Riverside District Olmsted Community Alliance meeting. Trying to break the ties. We've loved coming to rediscover Riverside, but we know you guys have other things you need to focus on. So trying to grow our own wings and fly. So again, like the opportunity to sort of have a conversation all about the park and the connections we need to make in the park. So unless anyone has any concerns that jump out at them with the idea of first Wednesdays of the quarter, so that depending on where New Year's lands, we may be having to shift the first meeting, but typically the first Wednesday in January, April, September. I'm missing one. I missed one. July. I really blew this. I gotta for the next meeting, I'm gonna write down the 4 months that these meetings happen in, but you get what I'm saying. The 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th. Yeah. So yeah, July and October. Sorry about that. So yeah, so that is the idea. We're gonna sort of standardize them so that so that we're sort of coming through at the same time. We don't have to sort of go through all the rigmarole of when these meetings happen. You can get the whole year down on your calendar right up front. So again, welcome any feedback on that now, or if it pops into your head later. But thank you. This has been, I've got a lot of notes. I know Zach's got a lot of notes, a number of things we're going to follow up on. We have a commitment for the second round to get meeting minutes out to the group within 2 weeks. So feel free to start harassing me that I haven't circulated minutes 2 weeks from today, because I think it's an important part of keeping progress on these issues and these ideas is that follow up. So appreciate everybody's time. Any final thoughts? Otherwise, we'll bring it to a close. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Again, if you have any interest in any of the other districts, go back to our website. You're welcome on any of the districts. The closing thought I'll have is more of an announcement of something to come, but we are going to be doing an online survey related to the ring roads in Delaware Park and South Park. So if you use those ring roads, I'm going to be broadcasting these through all the districts, but an online survey, a sort of joint effort between City Department of Public Works and the Conservancy are going to sort of getting more input on what we want to do long-term with those ring roads. So that'll be a conversation at the Delaware District meeting and the South District meeting. And then also the survey will be up for a few months. So with that, thanks, everybody. And we'll be in touch.
Brian, I
Thanks,
sent you
Brian.
those emails.
Okay, great. Thank you.